The vast majority of people that do it don't ever make a dollar off it. It's just something like innate in people, and it's something joyful and a sense of expression. Surfing and playing an instrument or singing a song challenges you to be in the moment and be focused on immediate surroundings and task at hand.
I didn't sleep last night. I couldn't turn off my mind.
Welcome back, or welcome to the Surf Mastery Podcast. That is a couple of quotes from today's guest, Joel Timmons. Joel is a surfer and a songwriter from Sullivan's Island in South Carolina, who grew up with a deep connection to both music and the ocean, and that is a song called Say It to My Face off his new album, Psychedelic Surf Country, which will play out in its entirety at the end of this interview. It's my favorite song off the album, so thank you for letting me use it in this podcast. I thoroughly enjoyed my conversation with Joel. I am a huge fan of listening and playing music, and this is a little bit of a different episode. Not a lot of surf content per se. It's mostly about music. And let me know if you're enjoying these different episodes. We did one a couple of weeks ago about parenting. This one's about music. And you let me know if you're enjoying the eclecticness of these episodes. And without further ado, I will fade in my conversation with Joel Timmons.
Remember back in the day, riding around in the OG smoking fat J's. We used to be so carefree. Wonder what happened between you and me. Now we don't hardly talk. Remember when
Thanks for joining.
Thank you.
I've been listening to the new album.
Sweet, man.
Yeah, I'm enjoying it.
How's it translate down under?
Pretty good, man.
You're in New Zealand, huh?
Yes, I am.
Cool.
Favorite song on that album is Say It to My Face.
Oh, cool, man. Yeah.
I think that's, for me at least, it's the most sort of, lyrically, it's the most relatable song.
Cool.
Yeah.
Very good. It's pretty direct, you know?
Yeah. No, I like that. Yeah, this sounds like there's a lot of self-work been going on as well.
I guess so, yeah. I think songwriting is like a big tool for me with that. Well, almost like journaling can be. And then sometimes those journals end up out in the world, and that is quite therapeutic. To have some secret little kernel of pain or question and then articulate it to yourself and make it feel nice to yourself and then get to share it with an audience is definitely transformative.
I guess songwriting is very cathartic in that way.
Yeah, the good ones are. That particular song, I was just at home, just like crying my eyes out. The words were just pouring out of me like the tears, you know. And since that moment, I had the opportunity to get back together with that friend and sort of have the conversation that we needed to have, you know. And even before I went into the studio to record it. So then being in the studio, it was really magical to like be able to access the pain of when we were at odds, but then also with the knowledge of, okay, we did it. And that kind of the jam out at the end of the song, you know, it sort of resolves to a major key. And that musically was that reconciliation. It was really a beautiful, beautiful journey, you know?
Yeah, it's a beautiful song. Sophie sent me an earlier version of it before it was released. And then
oh, cool.
Once it was released, the album was released, I went on to Spotify, and I kind of assumed that would be the most popular song. I was quite surprised to see that it wasn't.
Interesting. Yeah. Uh-huh. Yeah, well, and I didn't release that one as a single. So some of those songs that have singles or were released as singles, like have had a little more time out there. I don't, you know, I mean, I just know like a few people that I've talked to, Into the Empire, people like that song, which I didn't, I love that song, but I didn't know that it was like going to be, special for some people, you know. I'm glad to hear you say you like Say It to My Face. We played that one Friday. I did a release show here in town, and we played the whole album top to bottom live, you know. And that one, that one felt really potent.
I'm really enjoying the Trying song as well. It's really cool.
Yeah, that one was also very fun live. That was like the last, we were at the finish line of the record, and you could really cut loose. People were dancing and everything, so it was good time.
Yeah. So let's keep it surfing a little bit. When did you start surfing?
Yeah. So I grew up on a barrier island in South Carolina, Sullivan's Island. So we were like riding boogie boards and little styrofoam surfboards when I was, a toddler, 4 or 5 years old. And my family, when we moved to Louisiana for 3 years, when I was entering fourth grades, fourth, fifth, and sixth grade, we were in Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So there was no ocean there. My mom was a windsurfer, so we did a little windsurfing in Louisiana, brought that from South Carolina. And then when I moved back, like all my little buddies that I grew up with were all surfing I guess that was in seventh grade when I was like 13. So I started surfing kind of, and study and like reading the magazines and watching the Endless Summer and that kind of thing. And then I guess like it's the surf season here is like we get, hurricane swells in like the late summer and early fall. And then really most of the waves come in the winter. But when I first started, I wasn't surfing in the wintertime. It was probably high school before I got a wetsuit and started surfing year round. And I guess the year when I graduated high school, a couple of us took a surf trip to Costa Rica, which is kind of a rite of passage for an East Coast surfer.
Yeah.
Outer Banks in North Carolina, Florida, and then like the Caribbean or Central America.
Yeah. Puerto Rico as well?
I've been to Puerto Rico a couple times. I didn't go. I went there in college for the first time. So a couple years later, yeah, that's a really, really close flight and man, awesome surf destination. Yeah, I guess I've been there maybe 4 or 5 times now.
Yeah,
to Puerto Rico.
Yeah, I've been there once, and the waves were huge. I was so surprised how much swell they get there.
Yeah, I just got back from the Virgin Islands, which are just like the U.S. Virgin Islands, like the next islands over from Puerto Rico.
Yeah.
And I've been going down there every winter for about 15 years and have scored some great swells down there. This year was like a bit off. When I showed up, everybody was like, it's the best season we've ever seen. Like the old guys were like, the waves haven't stopped since September. And then like there was one more swell when I got there, and then it stopped and it's gone kind of quiet, but I did get to catch one good swell down there this year.
Are you a surfer who plays music or a musician who surfs?
I'm a musician who surfs. Yeah, for sure. No, definitely nobody's paying me to show up and so and I do get gigs. I don't know which one I would choose if I had to choose one or the other. Both have really guided me and helped me at different times.
Yeah. If you were stuck on a desert island, would you choose a surfboard or a guitar?
Surfboard or a guitar? Golly. If there was waves, I'd probably have to choose a surfboard, or like I'm trying to think of like some loophole, where I can like get a guitar that's shaped like a hand plane or something,
What's harder, surfing or music, for you personally?
I think surfing's harder. I don't know. The surf mastery title of the podcast is scary for me because I definitely don't feel like I'm a master of it. I don't feel like I'm a master of music either,
Well, that's kind of what the concept of mastery means. It's not that you've mastered something.
Mm-hmm.
It's that you have a drive to get better, no matter what level you are.
Yeah.
You want to improve.
Yep.
Mm.
And I do think that that's something. There's a parallel there in music for sure, as with surfing. Like I definitely, it's something. I'm 45 years old now, and I want to be. I'm like realizing now, like, oh gosh, I am kind of one of those old guys now at this point, but. There's a generation or two ahead of me that I look up to and want to still be doing this in 20 or 30 years, both music and surfing,
Yeah.
And it's like learning, and like and improving, even if my body presents limitations to me, it's along some point, if my fingers aren't as fast or my pop-up's not as fast, to like still be on a journey with it. Definitely.
Oh, for sure. I mean, I see a lot of synergy with music and surfing. I think surfing is far more an art form than it is a sport. And, you can pick your own journey, You could spend your entire lifetime only playing country music and never master it, and then decide to go into another genre and be all like a beginner again. And the same with surfing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Change a different type of board or a different type of wave that you want to surf and sort of begin your journey all over again. And music's interesting too, because there's probably amazing classically trained jazz musicians living in New York who barely earn any money, and then you've got people like you've heard of the Chats. You heard of them in Australia?
The Chats? No. No.
They're an Australian band, just sort of grunge punk rock basic music, but their lyrics speak to the entire culture of Australia, so they're
Cool.
sold out shows.
Yeah.
And they're certainly by no means talented musicians, you know. They're not terrible, but music's kind of cool like that. You know, you don't have to be an exceptional, talented musician. You just have to, I guess, play and speak from the heart and be good enough to perform to make it, I guess.
Yeah, when Jack Johnson had his records that were really hitting, you know, that was super inspiring for me, you know, to be like, this guy, we know him from his surfing and his writing in the surf world. And his music is beautiful, but it's not fancy, you know, it's very like direct and plain spoken. It's like, it sounds like something you'd hear at a bonfire. And when that was like, wow, this can really resonate with so many people, that's amazing, you know?
Yeah.
I found that encouraging as like a young songwriter, you know, trying to find my sound and my way, you know?
Yeah. On that note, what advice would you have for, let's say, someone who's starting to play guitar later in life? Do you ever look back and go, if I had to start all over again, I wouldn't do this and this, instead I'd focus on that?
That's interesting. Yeah, it's such a different environment now, like with all the teaching tools on the internet. I have a few guitar students, mostly like young kids, a couple that are like teens, and then some 8 and 9-year-old little dudes that are just kind of like exploring to find out what they're into, you know? And it's easier for those kids, I think, than it is for an adult. But I was probably 12 or 13 when I started picking up the guitar, and you know, I was just, for some reason at that point, so driven to do it and had free time to dedicate hours at it, you know? And today I don't know that I would have the focus or the time to devote to like a new thing that it took, you know, that I had when I was that age. Not to discourage any adult learners, but just that it's like, it's difficult. And there's like the painful part of like getting the mechanics of your hand to just press the string down, you know, that's like really defeating at first, and it doesn't sound good, you know, once you press through that, and it becomes fun and rewarding, you know, because you're making pleasant sounds.
Yeah.
But
do you play any other instruments?
I'm a percussionist. I play a lot of hand percussion, some drum set. My wife's a upright bass player, so I've gotten better at the bass. I'm not really like hireable yet because my like physically can't do it for a whole gig. It's like 10 minutes, and then this finger starts getting a blister, and this hand starts cramping up. It's a physical instrument, but yeah, I'd say percussion, guitar, vocals, my main expressions.
Yeah, that's interesting. Considering you have a background in percussion and guitar, one would assume bass would be quite easy for you.
Yeah, I mean, the bass guitar I can play and feel comfortable with that, but the upright bass is just like such a, you know, there's no frets, strings are really big around, and you're like really have to have good technique, and also just have a certain amount of strength and callus to like make the instrument speak, you know?
Yeah.
And my wife plays bluegrass music, you know, so it's just like boom, 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 boom on the bass, you know, and like in a jam situation, you got to just keep that going, and it's got to be even, and it's got to be loud, you know. And she could do it all night, relaxed with good technique and beautiful tone. And I'm like, take the bass, and I'm sweating and inefficient with my movements, and it doesn't sound as good. It's not as in tune, you know. And then I'm like, okay, sub, please. So I just haven't devoted the hours and hours it takes to like get that basic good technique down, you know.
Yeah,
that instrument. But there's one right over there. I could work on it here after this, you know. That's a rewarding instrument for me. Yeah, the upright bass. It feels really good to play it. When
you play live with your band, do you have a double bass player?
It's certain groups I do. So the band that I played with this on this album, Ethan Yojevitz is the bass player, and he played both double bass on some tracks and then bass guitar, and some 5-string bass guitar, some 4-string bass guitar. We recorded at this guy Mike Elizondo's recording studio. And Mike's a brilliant bass player and producer, and Ethan was a kid in a candy store. I'm going to use a different one on every with this particular nuance of this song requires like this particular electric bass from this era, and Mike had all of them there. So,
cool.
But yes, sometimes it's bass guitar, sometimes it's upright, sometimes it's both.
Yep. How many guitars do you own?
upwards of 15 or 20 maybe.
Oh yeah. How many surfboards?
Yeah, half a dozen, not too many.
And if you had to choose one surfboard, which one would it be?
I think I have a 9.3 Bing, like a single fan classic longboard. I guess it would probably depend like where am I going to be? But I guess if it's just the board for and I can still go anywhere I want. Of the boards I have now, I'd probably stick with the 9.3 because I get more days here on that board than anything, you know.
Yeah.
Though I'd get myself in trouble if I was in real heavy surf with that.
Yeah.
Break it in half, and then I'd have two shorties.
Do you see many synergies between surfing and music?
Yeah. I mean, with like we were talking about just the long arc of the journey, of it's something I've been doing since I was a kid, and I'm still really excited about it and still improving in some ways, and that the vast majority of people that do it don't ever make a dollar off it. It's just something like innate in people, and it's something joyful and a sense of expression. And then there's this like little industry that is, makes money on it. Some people are professionals at it, but like that's just a small part of the experience of music or surfing. And yeah, I'm lucky to get to be making money doing music and traveling. But I think I would still be doing it whether or not it was my job, it would still be a part of me.
So you're doing it for the right reasons, let's say. And when you're performing from that place, is that the performance in the song that tends to resonate most with the audience?
I certainly, when I go to a show, it's generally pretty obvious energetically if the performer is like fully invested in the moment, or disappointed or thinking about whatever. I mean, it's like a really challenging life to be away from home and putting your best self out there every night, Usually I can find that joy and the excitement of the moment, that both surfing and playing an instrument or singing a song challenges you to be in the moment and be focused on immediate surroundings and task at hand.
Yeah. Do you ever find yourself sort of struggling to get into that flow state as a performer?
Yeah, sometimes if the audio is challenging, if I can't hear the guitar or my voice in the way that I'm used to, or if, the instrument won't stay in tune, sometimes I'm like fighting the mechanics of it, or if, I've had too many gigs and my voice is worn out. If I'm thinking about just the physicality of it, that can be a challenge. But then I don't know. Sometimes you can press through, and I not something that I'm like thinking about usually on stage, but I think that's probably like an indication that I'm there, whether or not I'm like enjoying it. I'm just like really focused on and sort of primed up into the moment.
Well, are you able to do the same thing in surfing would be the next question.
Yeah, except when it's real crowded.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I really struggle with that. Yeah, to not have my mind like just taken by the social or the dynamic when it's a lot of folks out there,
Yeah.
or get frustrated on the wave count or whatever.
Yeah.
It's where I live here. Like my local is just a big sandbar, so you can kind of spread out. There's certain days where it's crowded everywhere, but that's just a handful of days a year. So usually I can just kind of spread out, and then surf traveling. Sometimes it's not, it's not like that.
Mm. Yeah, I guess performing as a musician is unique like that. Once you've got the stage, you've got the stage.
That's true. Yeah, I mean,
or do you sometimes
there are exceptions to that?
Yeah. What would be an exception? You have a sit-in musician who wants to steal the limelight or something.
Yeah. The sit-in, the harmonica player that won't take a hint. No, when I was on this recent tour in the Virgin Islands, we actually had like a really beautiful gig that sort of it sort of morphed into this kind of showcase of all these local musicians had shown up, and we'd been down there for a week, and it was like our second to last show. We had a steel drum player that came in for a while, and a saxophone player, a harmonica player, all these guys. At the end of the show, we were like, wow, that could have just gone so sideways. And it was just wonderful. Everybody read the room, played appropriately, didn't overstay their welcome, and it just flowed, you know. But that you know, sometimes when you're mixing too many ingredients in, or just have audio, if we're playing bars where there's like not really a stage, it's just a sand dance floor and a sand stage, and then you have people that invite themselves on and think they can play the tambourine, you know.
Oh yeah. It sounds like a crowded lineup.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah. And then when it's you and your buddies on stage, that's like surfing with you and your best mates.
Yeah, that's the best for sure.
Yeah, and then of course you got your solo sessions, which are extra special.
What would the equivalent of the solo session is like? You're just in the bar, you and the bartender. You're like, man, it sounds so good right now.
Yeah, or just you in the bedroom with an acoustic, you know.
Yeah, no, that's true. That's where a lot of it starts.
Yeah. How many hours a day, you know, when you were first really inspired and coming up and learning, how many hours a day would you spend on the instrument?
I think I spent like upwards 3 or more hours a day when I was first really tackling it, you know, and then maybe backed off that at some point, and then back to that point again at different periods, you know. I'm signed up to go to like a bluegrass guitar camp this May. It's like there's a big tradition of like fiddle, banjo, bluegrass camps like in the Appalachians and out west, all over the U.S., you know. And I'm sort of like adjacent to that scene, you know. I mean, I've grown up hearing bluegrass music, but not like playing it and going to those camps. Whereas like my wife is just deeply bluegrass from before she was born, you know. And part of it's like wanting to be able to keep up with her and her friends, but also like I'm genuinely interested in getting better at this kind of music. It's going to be fun to go and like you know, like what you're saying, to be a beginner again in this particular genre, you know. Like I'm like, yeah, okay, I get paid to play the guitar, but not this type, you know.
Yeah, you're going there as a student.
As a student, yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I sent my application, my video in, you know, and sent my money in, and yeah, it'll be 3 or 4 days. I'll have to leave for one of the days to go play a gig, and then come back miss one of the days. But
yeah,
I'm excited about that. I haven't ever done like a surf camp or anything like that. Well, the first time I went to Costa Rica, I guess because I was like a minor, you know, we went to like a camp that took us around the beach. So I guess I did do that when I was a kid.
Yeah, no, those types of camps are becoming more and more popular in surfing, you know, where you go on a surf trip for a week or so, and the objective is to actually learn and to get better at surfing or learn a new style of surfing. Those are becoming more and more popular.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep, totally.
Yeah. In music, there seems to be less arrogance around that. Even though you love to play and perform and write from the heart, you're still very aware of, hey, you know what, I could do with some theory and learning some different styles or whatever. And there's a humbleness within the music industry that hasn't really infiltrated surfing culture as much yet.
Yeah, and I was just thinking, like, you know, it's there. I mean, though there are like videos and stuff and people breaking down surf lessons, like it seems like a much more difficult thing, because like I can sit here with my guitar and stop the video and play it in slow motion, you know, and kind of like really integrate a lot of stuff with a YouTube instructor. But watching a video and then going out and paddling around and trying to integrate all that is like a much slower, more difficult loop, you know, to get your reps in.
Yeah. I guess surfing, with that analogy, surfing would be more similar to singing. Whereas when you are singing, and then you hear yourself back on a recording, you're like, oh, that's not how I thought it sounded, you know?
Yeah. For sure.
Because, when you watch yourself back on footage of surfing, you're like, oh. But I think in the same way of singing, like the more you record and listen to yourself singing, the closer those two things become, right? The way it sounds when you are singing and the way the recording sounds become closer and closer with more experience. Has that been your...
I think so, yeah. And maybe you just get more used to that sound of the amplified voice, you know, and like it not coming through your head. But I've gotten just more comfortable with that and more comfortable with knowing like, you know, you have the stage monitors with your voice coming back and knowing how much of that I want and if it's too muddy or too bright, how to get that to where it feels comfortable but doesn't feedback, you know. And I can sing quiet and hear myself, or I can sing loud and not blow my head off, you know. I think that has come with experience, mic technique.
Yeah, it's the same with surfing. Like when you watch yourself on video, and then go back and practice, those two things become closer and closer. The way surfing feels,
Yeah.
the way it looks, start
Yeah,
to line,
totally.
to line up. Yeah. Did you have lessons growing up, music lessons?
Growing up, a little bit. It was a little bit more just like playing music with groups of people. There were also, you know, like there was other kids that were getting instruments at the same time I was, and there was like an art school, that one of the kids I grew up with, his mom started it when we were real little, and it sort of grew into like a program. And there was an early American folk ensemble that this lady Hazel Ketchum, she kind of taught it. We were like all probably in 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and you know, like playing guitars, and she was teaching us everything from like Grateful Dead songs to old English ballads and kind of acoustic music, teaching us how to be in an ensemble. But it was more like we did read music a little bit, but it was a lot of learning by ear and harmony singing kind of by ear. And then in school, I was in the choir in the band program, so getting a little bit more structured musical education there. And then in our off afternoons, my friends and I were making up songs and like jamming in the garage on our electric guitars and drum sets and stuff, you know. So I was kind of getting it from all sides.
Yeah.
Not too many like private lessons, I don't think. A handful at the very beginning on the guitar.
Did your parents musical?
Yeah, my mom, she had a guitar at the house. She played guitar, and like at church, we all would, you know, sing in the choir at church. They would before church, they would have like a little, you know, more informal kind of like song circle type thing, you know, and that's kind of like the first place I saw people playing the guitar and singing, you know. And I was just amazed like how fast they could move from like one chord to the next, like just keep right in time with the song, not even break, you know, because I would like place my fingers individually, slowly stretching them to get that, you know. And I remember being just amazed at people that could just fluidly move between them, you know.
Yeah.
But they were not professional, but in a reverent way for sure.
Yeah. Who's your biggest influence musically?
I mean, some of those, it'd be tough to not say my parents, you know. I mean, if I'm thinking about those early musical memories, them taking me to see concerts, having the guitar at the house, encouraging me to be in the choir and stuff, you know. Also had like a really great choir instructor in high school, Miss Austin, who she also sponsored the guitar club at our high school, which was like sort of like the, you know, boys with guitar toys jam space, you know, during homeroom. So Miss Austin helped me a lot. And you know, and then like, I mean, like Led Zeppelin is like still kind of maybe my favorite band of all time. Like they were long since passed when I discovered them through cassette tapes, you know, but still it's like about as vibrant as there ever has been.
You mentioned concerts. What was the first concert that made a big impression on you?
I have a really like early memory. There's something in Charleston, South Carolina, where I grew up, called Spoleto Festival, and it's like a real arts from around the world kind of thing. It's still going on. It's sort of some of it's kind of highbrow opera and chamber music, and then the city does its own sort of like sister festival at the same time. And I remember seeing these guys playing these Andean panpipes. You know, it was a whole ensemble of dudes who you know, playing in concert together. I just remember like totally blowing my little mind. And I have memories of like choir at church. And like the first like rock and roll concert I went to was in 7th grade, Aerosmith. Well, a friend of ours, one like the cool mom loaded a bunch of us in the car and drove us 2 hours up the road to Columbia to the Coliseum. Saw Aerosmith.
Wow.
And yeah, that was awesome.
Yeah, what year was that?
I'm thinking that was like 92.
Yeah. Oh,
So
wow.
they were already kind of old rockers by then. That was, I don't know if that was like the what was the tour when they had all the cow graphics? It might have been that that era.
Yeah.
Um,
Oh, cool.
but they still played like Sweet Emotion and stuff.
Yeah, that would have been amazing.
Janie got a gun. Yeah.
Yeah. What's the first song you wrote? Or at least the one you remember that comes to mind
Yeah,
when I say that?
there's like I can't remember. There was two songs. Like this is like probably seventh grade or something. And there was one I wrote by myself. That's I can't really. It's super melodramatic. My life is full of misery. You love everybody, but you just can't stand me. Kind of real sorry for myself. 12-year-old kind
Yeah.
of emo.
Yeah.
Um,
Smashing
and then
Pumpkins.
yeah, oh yeah, right at that same time for sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
those were Blind Melon, Smashing Pumpkins, Nirvana, all that stuff on the radio.
Yeah.
And then me and my friend Natanya was our co-write. We wrote a song about like a stick. This is a story of a lonely stick. It was like an story about an inanimate object.
Mm.
Very to Tom Robbins, which I didn't really realize at the time. It was just the whole life story of the stick. Neither one of those have ever gotten recorded.
Ah. Maybe they should be.
Dig back. Yeah.
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 Yeah, why not? You never know.
Yeah. And sometimes I know sometimes like the child, there's a lot of like wisdom in the child, childlike perspective.
Yeah. Or even it makes me think of, for some reason, Hazard by Richard Marx. And I think
Cool.
that was a songwriting project given to him by a teacher.
Cool.
Okay, what he wrote
Cool,
it.
yeah.
He didn't necessarily write it for any reason apart from that, and it became one of his most famous songs.
That's cool.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And I definitely there was one song, I can't remember the title, but I heard a lot of John Prine influence in one of your songs.
Cool. Yeah, he's a huge influence for me for sure. Like I do remember hearing John Prine for the first time, not live, but my friend Joey, his dad lived up in the country in McClellanville, South Carolina, and we would go up there sometimes on the weekends, probably around that same 7th, 8th, 9th grade, and stay at his dad's, Dirty Dan's house. And Dirty Dan was like, "You guys need to listen to this," and he played us, Sam Stone and Paradise and Angel from Montgomery, and yeah, and then since then John has been like a total songwriting light for me. The way his plain spoken delivery, but then there's just layers and layers of empathy and humanity in there. And got to see him live a couple times in Nashville. He lived in Nashville when I was living there. And one time we went to Arnold's as like this meat and three restaurant. My mom was in town. My wife, I think probably both my parents and my wife and I all went for lunch. And then here comes John. This is one of his regular spots, and he goes to the buffet, and I'm kind of, Mom, and he walks past the table, and she can't keep it cool. She's like, "I love you, John. Love you, John. Thank you." I was like, okay,
Yeah.
And I was so embarrassed at the time. And then, a few years later, COVID happened, and we lost him in the early days of COVID.
Mm.
Really, really, really grieving that a lot during a very crazy time, And I was so glad that my mom told him that she loved him when she had the chance,
Yeah.
Like it was like a little bit inappropriate, but hey, that's your chance. She took it, And he knew it,
Yeah. I'm sure he appreciated it on some level.
Yeah, totally. It was, she didn't grab him or jump up and try to take a picture or anything, I was probably like going, like taking a picture over my shoulder at him.
Yeah. Funny. How long did you spend living in Nashville?
I lived there for about 5 years and was visiting Shelby, my wife, there for about a year before I moved there. So I think I moved there in 2015, and then 2020 we moved out of there. But heading back there next week. I love it. Yeah, it's an awesome place. No surfing though. That's a long way from the beach. Yeah.
Yeah. How important was that Nashville time to your musical development?
I mean, I think this new record is like definitely wouldn't have happened without Nashville. It's like definitely me trying to sort of document and take a Polaroid of that time and the people that I met while I was there. It's there's lots of songs about South Carolina, the Low Country where I'm here, and my youth on the coast. But all the sounds, the fiddle and the pedal steel, that was really fell in love with that in Nashville. And just I got more serious about songwriting and storytelling, and just the musicians that I got to meet there. You just get better just by getting to hear those people play regularly and watch their approach up close and in person,
You're just
No, it's
surrounded by it. It's like going to the North Shore as a surfer.
totally, yeah, exactly. Yeah, you better learn to duck dive or go back to Alabama.
Yeah. So, psychedelic surf country, what inspired that title?
It was after we made the record, and it's like, oh God, here comes another one of these decisions. Like we'll have to figure out what to call it. And I was just describing the sound to somebody, and I was like, I don't know, it's like psychedelic surf country. And I'm like, huh, that kind of sounds cool. So in the first play I was using it was describing it like as a genre or a amalgam of sounds. But then I also like thinking about it like it's a place. Because my friend the other night was like, oh, I thought it was like a place, where you're from, and I was like, yeah, sure, that too. But yeah, it just kind of came out of my mouth, and then I was like, oh, I think I like that. I think it sums it up pretty good. A quick Google search, it wasn't like already a band or anything.
Yeah.
Lots of psychedelic surf rock, lots of surf, psychedelic country even, but I couldn't find the three of them together. So I was like, I think that'll work.
Yeah. Does it describe your three favorite things?
Pretty well. Three interests for sure. Yeah. Uh-huh.
Oh, funny.
Yeah. I mean, the psychedelia is like, when the walls start getting fuzzy and the boundaries between things get blurry, and you realize that there's a great unity behind everything, and that's like music and a genreless place,
Yeah. That gave me the image of what's that cartoon with the black musician who has an out-of-body experience? Have you seen that?
I don't know if I have.
Oh,
I don't know.
I have to think of the title.
Is it like one of the... Yeah. Was it one of the ones that's sort of a documentary where they have the cartoon like voiceovers or?
No. Oh gosh, it's a really good movie. It's about a black music teacher who finally gets offered a gig with a famous jazz musician.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I haven't seen it.
Yeah, but then he kind of dies and has an out of body experience and come back. Oh, I have to put the title of that movie in the show notes if I don't remember it before the end of this. A really cool movie though. We're talking
cool.
about the soul of music but he very much loses himself, in the music, and has sort of when he's jamming that psychedelic experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I think I'm very much an amateur musician, but I've certainly had jam sessions where you're just playing a song and the song takes over and you're almost like witnessing yourself.
Yeah.
And I think those are the best surfing sessions as well, when you sort of become one with the rhythm of the ocean and you're just you're not really thinking, it's just moving in time and rhythm with the waves.
Yep.
Yeah. So
that's a noble pursuit.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, and I think so. For getting better at surfing, I always say to people, if you want to become a good musician and you're not, naturally gifted, or you don't play by ear or anything, then there's no way of getting it. You have to spend some time, learning your chords and your scales and your modes, and then when you jam, if those modes and scales are just in your muscle memory, you don't have to think about them. That's when you can sort of slot in and really have that creative expression. And I think surfing is the same thing. Obviously, it's more athletic. It's full body movements, not just your fingers. Yeah. But if people want to become better at surfing, they really do have to practice those movements of surfing over and over again, and just install a slow motion pop up and a tube stance needs to be ingrained into your nervous system, just like a music scale or a chord shape.
Yeah, and do you have people doing those motions on land, like?
Yep.
Yeah, doing shore based, fitness and
That's if you didn't grow up surfing as a kid for 8 hours a day, and you come to surfing later in life, or you get to a stage where you want to really improve, there's no way of getting around it, because even if you go surfing for 3 hours, maybe if you're lucky, 3 minutes of that is actually spent
Yeah.
surfing. The rest is just
Yeah.
so you know there's no getting around sort of those surfing exercises.
The rest of it's paddling around in circles, trying not to drown. That's what I tell people.
Basically. So I always use the analogy of music, and musicians always humble themselves, and they do the scales, and they
Yeah.
learn the chords, and they learn the theory, and that's what gives way to jam
Yeah.
sessions and music writing and that sort of thing. So
Yep. Yep. Totally. Where in New Zealand are you?
I own a place called Hawke's Bay, which is on the east coast of the North Island. Yeah,
Cool.
long way away.
I got to visit New Zealand just once, but it was 2003,
Mm-hmm.
and I was out like doing an around the world itinerary. Kind of had finished college, worked for a year, saved up some money, and we flew to Tonga, and then crewed a sailboat from Tonga, and then came in the Bay Islands.
Bay of Islands.
Bay of Islands, yeah.
Yep.
And
wow.
then caravanned around New Zealand for like 6 weeks.
Oh, rad.
It was awesome. And I cannot believe that I haven't been back because it was like life changing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I've been back to Australia a few more times since then. But
Doing shows?
Back to New Zealand. Yeah. Yeah. Doing shows. My wife and I have done 2 tours of Australia. So I guess I've been to Australia 3 times because I went on that same trip.
Yep.
After New Zealand.
Oh yeah. Were you here in New Zealand? Were you playing music while you were here as well? Or?
I had like a little backpacker guitar with me, and we were just cruising around and met some house truckers, and did some car park jamming, but not no gigs or anything. I wasn't at that. That was kind of like the trip where I decided like, yeah, okay, I want to do music for real. And so when I came back to the States, that started, I'd already had a band and had been playing gigs and stuff, but I was like, no, okay, I'm not going to go to grad school. This is what I want to do.
How old were you then?
24,
Okay.
23, 24. Yeah.
Was that a scary decision?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, maybe not at the time. Like at the time, it didn't. When you're 23, anything you can do anything. And there's been scary parts along the way, and sort of like reevaluate and reinvest and dig back in moments. But on that same trip, like, we were Tonga, New Zealand, Australia, and then Indonesia, Southeast Asia, Nepal, and India. And then the plan was to go to Europe, but in India, I got super sick, and ended up in New Delhi with Guillain-Barré syndrome. It was like basically fully paralyzed.
Oh, wow.
It was a real, near-death experience, basically. And when I came back to the States, I was like in a wheelchair, couldn't sing, couldn't play the guitar, but just I kind of like knew that that's what I wanted to do, and focusing on the music and just like the people, my bandmates that would like accommodate me and, let me play just a little bit and like encourage me back onto that journey. It was a real part of my recovery.
Oh, wow. How long was recovery?
Like a full year.
Wow.
It was nuts. I was in the hospital for 6 weeks. And when I came out, I was super emaciated, and then it was just like physical therapy for a better part of a year.
Oh,
After
wow.
that, retraining learning how to walk again and, everything.
How important was nutrition and lifestyle on that journey?
Extremely. Yeah, for sure. And surfing too, I mean, I was like, initially body surfing and bodyboarding and then longboarding and stand-up paddleboarding. Like it kind of opened through my different physical restraints, it opened my eyes to all these different ways of getting out there and riding waves and getting benefits. The nutrition was more like, I mean, it was for a long time, it was kind of like just eat anything and everything that you can, because I was down to like a skeleton. And really for me, I mean, I've always been thin. And so I just try to eat a lot, but make sure I eat a lot of vegetables too.
Yeah.
And lifestyle is a challenge, being a musician, for sure. Like having a regular time you go to bed and a regular time you wake up, and your 3 square meals, and it's like sometimes I'm in a different bed in different town every night, and There's always alcohol and,
Yeah.
you know, other stuff around all the time, you know, so it's a challenge.
Yeah.
But yeah, have managed to not go to jail or die. And I've seen plenty of people that have, you know,
Yeah.
the wreckage along the side of the ways, you know, it's, yeah,
Yeah. It can go either way.
yeah.
Yeah. But so when you finally made that like commitment, like, okay, I'm going to put everything into music, was it a relief in some ways?
Maybe so. Yeah, yeah. It definitely, yeah, allowed me to just sort of let some of these other voices go. About, you know, I studied science in undergrad, studied geology, you know, and so it was like that's sort of a field where you kind of there's a lot more opportunity if you go to graduate school or get a PhD. So I was just this question about more education, you know, lingering in the back, and I also wondered about, you know, being like a wilderness instructor or something like that, you know, or a few other questions.
Mm-hmm.
But then just diving into the band, treating it like a business, moved into a house with, you know, my buddies, my best friends, and kind of everybody had their role. It was super DIY, not necessarily punk rock, but like, yeah, very communal kind of
Yeah.
approach to like, you know, sharing our groceries and, you know, getting in the van and driving across the country and playing shows and piling together what we'd make out of it, you know. So yeah, it was pretty dang fun, but also very scary. And like, you know, like you're watching your friends sort of like, I'm going to take this exit off this lifestyle and go like have a wife and settle down and have some kids and have a normal life, you know. And there's been folks that take the off ramps when presented with them, you know.
Mm.
And for whatever reason, I've continued to stay the course.
Yeah. You mentioned a little bit of there's obviously a scientific side to you, an interest there.
Yeah.
Did you put any of that into your songwriting? Like, have you written songs based on music theory, things like that?
You know, I've written a couple. I wrote a song that started off as like a kid's song, working at a camp in North Carolina. And this was right around the time the band was kind of like getting serious. I'm not sure if this was. It was after that trip to India that I was back at camp working, and it was for the summer solstice. And so I wrote a song sort of like explaining the position of the planets and like what the solstice was and why we have the seasons, you know. And then it's kind of turned into like a jam that my band Soul River Train has played for years, you know. But it started off as sort of a nursery rhyme science lesson.
Huh. Cool. Yeah.
Some book report songs about, you know, local history stuff too. Yeah.
So what's the future hold for music? What's next? Do you have another album concept, or are you going to focus on marketing and performing this one?
Yeah, it's gonna be some performing and doing the press stuff with this record. I'm heading to Nashville the day after tomorrow to play a show there, and my wife, I mentioned, she's also a musician. She's got a listening party for her record, so it's kind of coming right in the tail of mine. So part of my going to bluegrass camp is going to be to get good enough at playing bluegrass, so maybe she'll hire me in her band when her record comes out.
Yeah.
And then I'm also touring with an artist named Maya DeVitri. She's a Nashville songwriter that I met when I was living there, and we're heading out to the West Coast in March and have a bunch of tour dates throughout the summer with her. My band Soul Driven Train is these guys that I've known since childhood here in Charleston. And we have a scattering of shows too. Next ones are in Key West, Florida. So I'll head down to Key West at the end of the month.
Yep.
Yeah, just domestic U.S. tour dates with a couple different bands.
Yep. Oh, cool. I'd like to get your opinion on the music scene in general. There's a lot of talk about the whole influence of AI and AI written music, etc.
Yeah.
Are you experiencing any of that, or is it all hearsay?
I've heard some pretty damn funny AI songs. Oh shoot, it's getting pretty good. I'm simultaneously terrified and fascinated with AI. I mean, I use ChatGPT. I've resisted like using it for songwriting, though. I think it would be a brilliant songwriting partner. But I, use it to write difficult emails, or even the other day I was doing this TV thing and I was like, hey, what what should it helped me sequence my record. I was like, give me 5 different, here are the songs and a little note about each one. Give me 5 different sequence possibilities, And not that I used any of those, but it put a song first that I never would have thought of. And I'm like, oh, wow. Well, what does that mean? It's just like it just generates ideas that I wouldn't necessarily think of really rapidly. As far as like the generative, the songs and like the recordings, that it can make, I'm sure it'll be imperceptibly good, at some point. It's not quite there yet, but it's pretty funny. And that's kind of, I wish I could remember the name of this bluegrass song that my wife played for me. It was something about Ricky Skaggs in outer space. And it's it's very strange. AI bluegrass, but it has like a banjo roll in there and it gets the elements, Yeah, I mean, I think every field is going to be affected by it,
The music industry's been through a lot, man. I mean, when you first were getting into music, a lot of musicians would have been making money off CDs, and
right. Yeah.
And now, those musicians spent all that money and they've got to go back on tour now.
Yeah, totally. I mean, Hootie and the Blowfish is a local Charleston band that was absolutely blowing up in the early 90s, when CDs were like at the peak,
Yeah.
Multi-platinum, cracked rear view,
Yeah. Hold my hand.
Yeah, man. And Darius he's still out there. I don't think he spent all his money, but he's out there still touring, doing country stuff,
Yeah.
And Mark Bryan's still super active in Charleston scene too,
Yeah.
Yeah, but I definitely missed the boat on that one.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow.
It's most I've been a live performer my whole career, really, is how I've managed to make it work, and the recordings support that and give us something to talk about and a way to get better at capturing the songs, but most of the revenues come from face-to-face, old school.
Yeah.
Which I think AI is a way off from being able to replicate that. The experience.
Well, I don't think it ever can.
Yeah.
Unless you.
I mean, I think you.
Westworld.
Right. No, I think that there's like yeah, we'll see that pretty soon, It's
I think that might be a long way off.
Robots.
Yeah.
That are basically jukeboxes, in bars that can play any song, but it's not just a jukebox, it's an actual robot mechanically striking the drums,
Yeah.
I think I'll see it in our time.
Maybe.
Chuck E. Cheese used to kind of do that, but they they just play the recording and have the puppets, but I think
yeah. I think you still want to see the real person, don't you?
I think so. I think it will. I think there'll be a place for that. That's always special, of person to person live transmission of heart and soul.
Like Rick Beato tried to quantized the John Bottom beat, the Led Zeppelin song.
Yeah,
sounded terrible.
Oh yeah.
So
yeah.
There's those unique drummers that I don't think anyone can ever. That vibe of a band like Led Zeppelin, you can't be replicated,
I don't know. I'm skeptical. I think that like that you can program. You could just dump all of those John Bonham drum tracks in there, and then you'd have a robot that would have the sound, the tone, and like the discrepancy of where the pocket is. It would analyze that and know where it is.
But the point is, it's been done. It's been done.
Yeah, no, it's true. It would not be new, but it would be Bonham-esque, and it wouldn't drink all the beer.
Yeah. I have to ask you, are you a fan of, and have you heard of Crowded House?
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And what did Tom Petty mean to you?
Man, I love Tom Petty. I did get to see, that was an early concert too. Like high school, I saw Tom Petty playing the Coliseum in Charleston. Yeah. Wow. What a songwriter. What an artist. The sound was bad that night, and I thought the performance was lackluster, so I didn't have like a great impression of the live show. And I've seen enough videos since then to know that, yeah, she was a fantastic live performer and his band was one of the best ever, but, as a 16-year-old, I was kind of like, unimpressed. But
Yeah.
but yeah, yeah, I love Tom Petty.
Yeah.
That Wildflowers album is probably maybe my favorite.
Oh yeah. Yeah, special. Yeah. Awesome. Well, where can people go to find out more about you and listen to your music?
I'm on the streaming services. My name's Joel Timmons, and joeltimmons.com is my website. So that's the main portal. I'm a reluctant user of Instagram. It's about my only social media footprint.
Yep.
But I'm on there pretty regularly.
Yeah. Oh, awesome. Well, I'll put links to everything on your website and your Spotify profile, etc., in the show notes. And Joel, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate it.
Man, Michael, thanks a lot. I appreciate you having me on.
I didn't sleep last night. I couldn't turn off my mind. It was catching a train, wondering what you said. Don't you say it to my face. Couldn't find the time to sit down and truly speak our minds. We're buried it deep inside, something we cannot hide. Come and say it to my face. 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 Remember back in the day, riding around in the OG, smoking fat J's. We used to be so carefree. Wonder what happened between you and me. Now we don't hardly talk. Remember when I had to relearn to walk? We used to sing about the blood. You think I'm fucking stealing from you, bruh? Well, don't you say it to my face. Won't you say it to my face? Come and say it to my face. You can say it to my face. Friendship, what a thin disguise. Well, can we get back to that place? A house in the country with a jam space. Well, don't you say it to my face. 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 You can say it to my face. Say it to my face. Say it to my face. Oh, say it to my face. Oh, say it to my face.